For those of you who don't know me, and there may be some of you, my name is Feliciano Sanchez and I am the Vice President of Cystic Fibrosis WA. As Jackie, our President, can't be here tonight, I'll be chairing the night. My first duty, of course, is to welcome all of you, so welcome. It's good to have you here. We've done a count, we have a quorum, which is good. You need a quorum, so we'll proceed. In Jackie's absence, I'll introduce our guest speaker. It's our custom at our AGMs to have a guest speaker to come and speak on different topics of interest. This year it's our pleasure to have David Jack, the CEO of Cystic Fibrosis Australia. David has been in the job, he celebrated 12 months in December, is that right? Yeah. So he's had long enough to get his feet under the table and have a look around. A little bit of background on David before he comes and talks to us. David has extensive experience in leading and managing community, international development, health and disability not-for-profits, particularly through periods of change. And he's very good at facilitating greater collaboration and integration amongst all of the stakeholders, I have to say. And this has certainly been a feature of David's leadership of Cystic Fibrosis Australia. In past roles, David has been CEO of a community centre, building it to be a substantial service provider. Services included foster care, respite for young people, and a disability, for young people with a disability, I should say, and frail-aged home support program, outside school hours care program, youth and playgroup centre, and they operated a pilot supervised contact service as well. Following this, David was CEO for ADRA Australia and Regional Vice President. ADRA is an international development charity. It's AusAid funded and Australian Government accredited, and it provides education, water, food security, microfinance, health and emergency response programming to countries in Africa, Asia and the Pacific. More recently, David was CEO of Muscular Dystrophy New South Wales, offering a range of services to people who live with neuromuscular condition. During this time, he also established a national body, Muscular Dystrophy Foundation, aimed at increasing cohesion and bringing the state muscular dystrophy organisations together for advocacy, awareness, joint services and fundraising projects. In David's current role as CEO of CF Australia, David is responsible for national advocacy and awareness, research funding, fundraising, the CF Data Registry, the Australian-New Zealand CF Conference, 65 Roses Day, national fundraising campaigns, leading the state and territory CEOs in federation business, coordinating the clinic peer review program, managing the website, administering the ACFRT, national sponsorship agreements, running a small group of staff on a shoestring, walking on water, and a quality improvement program to influence the health services available to people who live with cystic fibrosis. So David is a busy man. He's a very articulate and erudite man as well, so I'm looking forward to hearing him speak. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please give a warm welcome to David Jack.
After that introduction, I'm almost afraid to stand up. Felice, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to attend your AGM and your celebration of another successful year for CFWA. To Patron John Rothwell, to President Jackie Ormsby and board members, CEO Nigel Barker and staff, congratulations on your achievements both in Western Australia as well as on the national stage. I have a great deal of admiration for those who aspire to something that seems just outside of their grasp. And I guess the Adam Scott, until a few days ago, aspired to wear a green jacket. Aspiration achieved. I don't know if you've been catching up with The Voice these past couple of weeks. Our family, when we get a chance, we sit down and enjoy that, kids. And it's interesting to watch people come on stage aspiring to be a star, aspiring to be a rock star, aspiring to win a competition. Interesting. And for one person at the end of the show, aspiration will be achieved. I recall spending time with a group of young people a couple of years ago talking through a new program that we developed. We called it Duke of Edinburgh for young people with a disability. We'd taken the Duke of Edinburgh program and we'd redesigned it around the needs of young people who live with neuromuscular conditions. So these are young people who typically spend most of their life in a wheelchair. And it was quite a challenge for us to redesign and to make that program fit to that particular group of young people. And the Duke of Edinburgh has three components: taking on a new challenge, learning a new set of skills, and engaging in a service activity. For those of you who know about the program, often the challenge is about camping, it's about bushwalking, it's about backpacking overnight for 4 or 5 days. So we had to kind of think this through. And I remember talking to one particular young person who, if I remember rightly, she was about 22 years of age, wheelchair bound, quite intelligent, quite articulate, but she was really troubled by this concept of a service activity. Because for many of the young people, they spent most of their life being served, whether a carer, whether a teacher, people gathered around them to help them to manage their way through life. And she just couldn't conceive of the value of her life to another person. So we spent a lot of time talking about this, and we finally came up with an idea. Because she was quite bright and quite intelligent, we involved her, and she really rose to the challenge in tutoring young refugee children, and she loved it. And as she began to be involved in that activity, as she began to pursue that aspiration to serve, it was just fascinating to see the way in which it changed not only the young child's life, the young refugee child's life, but to see the way that it influenced her own life and to see the way that it enabled her to grow as well. In many respects, for her, aspiration achieved. As head of an international development charity, I did travel frequently to Africa and throughout Asia, the Pacific. Spent a lot of time in communities which had lost hope. Communities which struggled to aspire to anything. And I remember one particular trip to Asia following the Asian tsunami, and I joined the organisation 6 months before the tsunami, and we were completely overwhelmed and under-resourced to address the huge need in that country. And I was travelling through Thailand and landed into a small village. And a fishing boat had been washed into the village about 8 kilometres, and it had lodged in a backyard of a small family home. And the front of the boat, and the family home was up on stilts, and even then it still got washed away and had to be rebuilt. But the family home, the ship had come in and just touched the guttering of the house before the house was washed away. And as I spent time in that little village in the middle of nowhere, talking to a family who were incredibly challenged, we talked about their aspiration. And I asked questions about what life was all about and what they would like life to be in the future. And it was very simple for them. They just wanted to go back to the way it was. That was their aspiration. Very simple, very straightforward. They didn't want for much. They didn't have much. The kids were happy about the 60-foot fishing trawler in the backyard because it became their playground. Perhaps the most challenging experience for me was in Africa in this little village. And again, I spoke to a family about aspiration. and about what they would love life to look like and to feel like, and what they would like to experience in life. And this particular grandmother had lost her 4 children to AIDS, and leaving behind about a dozen grandchildren. And she was their only living adult relative. And we spoke together about life and about the challenge of living in a small village in Malawi where there were drought conditions. And you can see there's a little bucket behind, and the bucket had some small, very hard bananas, which was all they could grow, and they had a little bit of corn stored from the previous crop. And we talked about their aspiration. And it was very simple for her, and it was entirely focused on those grandchildren. And in her words, which were translated to me, she said, I want them to live, I want them to have an education, and I want them to have some kind of a future, which is more than the life that I have lived all of these years. And she worked hard. She had a garden. She worked hard. She planted the garden. She tended the garden to feed these children. And when I visited, it was at the end of the drought period, and life had been extremely tough. You know, what was interesting was then to talk to the children. And what became evident was that her aspiration for them gave them hope, and hope gave them the will to continue to struggle, to continue to live. Aspiration is a very, very powerful concept. Very, very powerful. And it, you know, in my own limited life experience with these stories that I've shared, it's been responsible for a young person with a disability confined to a wheelchair stepping out and doing something amazing for another person. It's been responsible for a group of children who saw no opportunity for real life to absolutely believe in a grandmother who believed in them and had an aspiration for their life. The word aspiration, you know, let's define it. It's the strong desire to achieve something. It's an ambition. It's hope for something yet to be achieved. You know, there's something else really interesting about the word aspiration. It also means the act of breathing. Interesting. This word aspiration that places achievement and breathing into the same definition seems to me to be so appropriate for this evening. To achieve, to breathe. Aspiration. An aspiration for cystic fibrosis, whether Western Australia or another state or national, one aspiration that is there to be achieved is what we've come to know as the Collaborative Research Project. And what an aspiration that is. It's been initiated by Cystic Fibrosis Western Australia, and I congratulate them. It's aspirational. It's a game changer for CF research in Australia. It has the potential to be absolutely transformational for the CF community. Transformational, my second word for the evening. There are no more. And from my perspective tonight, it's so important for me to say a huge vote of confidence and appreciation on behalf of the CF community right around Australia to CFWA, the members, the board, the staff, the visionaries who have been willing to spend a huge amount of time and effort to bring the Collaborative Research Project to the place it is today. And I'll talk more about that later. And we value not only your vision, but your courage and the aspiration which has resulted in this project being right at that place where it's about to be launched formally into the capital fundraising campaign stage. And I put a few thoughts there about the Collaborative Research Project. You know, up until recently, we haven't really had an overall research strategy for CF research in Australia. We've only ever invested small amounts of money, comparatively speaking, to the large amounts that are available through for other disease groups. And it was time to do something. And somebody and a group of people finally took that opportunity to think a little bit more deeply about CF research. The goal of, and there were 3 projects identified, but the goal for the one project that's going forward to the capital campaign is structural lung disease reduced by 50% in infants under 5 years of age. Now that is a stunning objective to have out there in front of us, but one that, according to the researchers, can be achieved. Those are the 3 projects that were recommended. There was a quality improvement program, the Arrest CF program, and the follistatin project, and perhaps you've read about these. I'm not going to go through them in detail. The quality improvement program, we're still continuing to pursue the government for funding of that. We've had some meetings even in these past few days, Nigel and myself, to talk about that. And with the change of government as a potential, we're talking obviously to the current and to the potential new government, and we hope that there will be an opportunity to see that properly funded. Follistatin is really positioned for venture capital, and again there's been approaches and meetings and discussions held around that one. But Arrest CF is the project which is going to be looked at as part of the capital campaign. We'll be looking at raising funds for the Arrest CF project. It's a project which is based here in Perth, but it's collaborative, so there are sites around Australia and internationally as well. So where are we at with the capital fundraising campaign? In August 2011, there was a call for expressions of interest. In April 2012, there was a recommendation to the CFA board of those 3 projects, which the board accepted. Between June and November, we engaged Global Philanthropic to conduct a feasibility around a capital campaign. In April 2013, the funding approval has been provided that will enable the campaign to be funded for the first 12 months. And in May 2013, I just received an email from our solicitors just a few moments before the meeting to provide a little bit of feedback on the contract, which we'll sign in a couple of days, and the campaign will commence formally in May. Well, you know, what's very important about the capital fundraising campaign and about the collaborative research project is that whilst you may have had the original vision, the idea, the aspiration, what's so significant is that every state and territory has now picked up on it. They've all put their databases on the table. They've all said we're committed, we're supportive, we want to be involved, we want to be a part of this, we want to be committed to it, and we want to participate in the fundraising. That is significant, because I don't think that was an outcome that we would have anticipated 12 months ago. Letters of support have been written by the states and territories to the CFWA board just to acknowledge and appreciate and value the commitment that they've shown and the work that they've done. So we're in a very positive place as a CF community in Australia, and certainly the collaborative research project has made a very significant contribution to that. It's very important to understand what a capital fundraising campaign is all about. We don't go out to the media, we don't go out in a public way initially. The capital campaign has a long quiet phase, and during the quiet phase we seek through a very focused campaign to a small group of individuals to raise between 50 and 60% of the total funds. When we've raised between 50 and 60%, then there is a public launch, and the public launch is an opportunity to obviously showcase the kind of support that's available for the project, gives the members of the general public, members of our CF community, a lot of encouragement, a lot of hope, and a lot of anticipation that we're on the road, the journey's begun. There's a lot that's happening, and people are much more inclined to join. So that campaign's about to start, and it will create a lot of work, but I think it's going to be a really worthwhile journey for us all. Transformation, the second word. I'll go back one slide. To be transformed means to be what? To be changed, it does. It means to be changed. And transformation is taking place around us all the time, whether it's a construction site or a classroom or a gymnasium. there is change taking place in those places. And I want to share just for a few moments a great example of transformation, of the transformation that hope or aspiration can bring into the life of a person. We asked a group of people recently to write in 100 words or less what Kaleido means to them. Now, for those who aren't aware, Kaleido is a brand new treatment which has been approved in the US, Canada, UK, etc., that treats people with the 551D mutation. And it's quite an outstanding treatment. It's had stunning results. It's recently been submitted to the TGA and the PBAC for approval here in Australia, but there are obviously people who have been involved in clinical trial and people who have accessed it through the patient access program who are taking the treatment. So we asked some people involved, some people who have that particular mutation, just describe in 100 words or less what Kaleido means to you. And they did, and they've given permission for us to share some of their words. So let me just share their responses. And this is a person who is not currently taking the treatment, but they've heard about it. Kaleido, Special K, Blue Lightning, it's a little blue tablet, or the robotic sounding VX77 is coming. Luckily, I am one that will benefit when this wonder drug arrives here. Will it mean being able to run and play on the beach without coughing or sleeping through the night without disturbing anyone? Do I now pursue my life's dream of becoming a veterinarian, as I will still be here at the end of my degree, rather than working as just a veterinary nurse? Or something simple like not taking up a hospital bed that's needed for other CF patients? I don't know, but the future is now and I can't wait to live it. Transformation, hope. And one more brief email from somebody who is taking the treatment. Last May, I began Kaleido. Words are not enough to describe how Kaleido has transformed my life. My feelings are as though I have been liberated from death row. I have not needed IVs. My FEV has gone from 40% to 65% peak. My weight from 41 kilograms to 56. My sweat test from 86 down to 46. If I did not sustain damage from 31 years of CF, I would feel normal. I'm living my dreams. It means everything to me. I have 4 young sons, 7, 5, 3 and 2, and a husband whom I love with my whole heart. Before Kaleido, despite my complete personal happiness with my family, life with CF was painful, grueling, unrelenting, lonely and exhausting. Now it's peaceful, happy, energetic, full of hope and possibilities, and I am profoundly thankful for this opportunity of time. Not only that the quality of the time is priceless, but now I am able to attend milestone events in my sons' lives. Now, as I read those 2 letters, I had the strong sense that they were each written from the perspective of either hope or relief. And I was disappointed by that. Being given access to a potentially life-saving or life-enhancing treatment should be an expectation, not a hope. A person should have a right to expect that funds will be spent on research and new treatments will be available, not experience relief as if the decision could have gone either way. You know, the development of Kaleido began as an idea. It was an aspiration for someone, a researcher somewhere. It needed seed money, it needed commitment, courage, faith even. Lesson learned. Of course we get behind a collaborative research project, embracing its risk as well as its opportunity. That one day an email similar to one of those will be written about its benefits. Research in Australia needs big ideas. with the associated investment required to see them through. What does research look like in Australia, or what has it looked like for the past 11 years? Well, you can see we've raised $4 million. Well, I should say that many have raised $4 million and we've been the custodians of those funds. But $4 million has been raised over the past 11 years, an average of $360,000 a year. The funds are typically spent on small grants and PhD scholarships. We'd certainly like to see funding through the ACFRT increase so we can do more of that work. We need young people coming in, engaged around CF research to go on to do great things, but it is a small program. Turning on the air conditioner, it's a great idea. Research in Australia, what can it look like over the next 5 years? And I've just extrapolated out that if we continue to raise the $360,000 a year, and I've added a column for NH and MRC, and you can see there how much money's been allocated by the NH and MRC to CF research over the past 11 years. And I've just taken an average of the last 5 years for NH and MRC, because you can see that there was a bit of a jump between 2006 and 2007 and beyond. And you can see the kinds of numbers that have been available to CF research and the kind of money that will come through in the next 5 years as well. You then add the CRP, the Collaborative Research Project, anticipated on advice to raise between $10 and $20 million, take out the costs and so on, and it's likely that we'll bank between $8.5 and $17 million during the next 5 years towards the collaborative research projects. And you can see, and particularly if you look at the next graph, the red line being the combined ACFRT and collaborative research project funding, and you can see the potential for substantially increasing funding to CF research. And we wouldn't like to think that that was a 5-year blip on the screen. We'd like to think that in establishing a new benchmark for CF research in Australia, that kind of trend, it may not be at the same level, but that trend towards an increased and a more appropriate level of funding to CF research is maintained in the long term as well. So, the campaign for Kaleido, and let me just step back a moment. Today, Kaleido requires advocacy, and Kaleido, the treatment that the two emails will focus on, it does require advocacy as we seek to inspire and to influence a regulatory system and a government to make a decision to fund this new treatment, that those who may benefit may exercise their right to it and expect that it will be available soon. And certainly there's a timetable, and as with every government department, it's set out, it's clear. You apply, you submit to the TGA, and that was achieved last year in June. You submit then to the PBAC, the TGA will rule on whether it's an effective treatment, whether it's clinically, whether it's safe. The PBAC is more interested in cost, and the submission went to the PBAC in March. In July, we anticipate they'll make a decision, and in August they'll probably inform the pharmaceutical company Vertex of their decision. And there are a number of outcomes. They can approve it, at which point it will move on to Cabinet, which will probably be post-election. They can decline the application, or they can approve it but not be willing to recommend funding for it and perhaps push it on to the life-saving drugs program. So you can see there's quite a process. And our ability to tell stories, our ability to not only support the data, to present the clinical trial information, which is for Vertex, the company, but our ability to tell stories that highlight the transformation that occurs in the life of a patient who has access to the treatment is going to be a very important part of the advocacy campaign. So we've developed a campaign, and we've obviously had some professional advice, and there are a number of phases to that campaign. We've already been involved in a lot of meetings with politicians just to help them to understand the critical importance of this particular new treatment and its benefit to patients. And that campaign will roll out. Again, right now is a quiet phase. We're not running off to the media until we know the outcome of that PBAC meeting in July. We need to ensure that when we go to the media, because we get one opportunity, that we go with the outcome in mind and we can frame the story around that particular outcome. Research and the CRP won't be the first time that Australians have made a significant contribution. Inspiration for the development of hypertonic saline as a novel treatment for cystic fibrosis came partly from observations on Australian surfers who reported improved breathing and clearer sinuses with surfing. And Professor Peter Bai, who's located in Sydney, was the one who led the team, and they were able to establish a brand new treatment which is now used around the world. And surfing is set again to make a contribution to cystic fibrosis. We received an email a few weeks ago from a former top 10 pro surfer, an Australian, who's back on the circuit. He'd been out for 2 years. And he'd stumbled across cystic fibrosis and sent an email and just said, look, I'm a surfer, I'd like to help. And there was something about the words that he chose, and I read between the lines, and we rang him and said, tell us more about who you are and what you do. And his story tumbled out. Pro surfer, top 10, back on the circuit, bumped into some people who are involved in a foundation supporting cystic fibrosis, a surf program in the US called Malleola Foundation, and he just wanted to help us. So we flew up to meet him on the Gold Coast, and I'd done a little bit of research, and he said, I don't know what I can do, but I'd like to help. I said, Nathan, his name's Nathan Hedge, or the Hog. I said, Nathan, how about if we pitch a pro surfing event for Sydney for next year as part of the pro tour that rolls through Australia? And he couldn't believe that we would actually, think that strategically and think that big, and he got pretty excited about it. And he started to make some phone calls, and so did we. And the upshot of all of that is that the Association of Surfing Professionals, which is located in Australia, which runs the pro tour, has now approved the event. So they've given us a 3-year licence with an option to go 3 more years. So next year we're going to transform into an event management company running a pro tour surfing event, international event with all the top surfers, the top international surfers. We're going to present the event, and Nathan is our ambassador. We've had the meetings with the ASP, Surfing New South Wales, Surfing Australia. Everybody's on board, everyone's positive. Channel 9, David Gingell happens to be the chair of Surfing New South Wales. He loves the idea. So we'll be the only pro tour event that has a commercial network sponsor. Fox Sports have come on board and said we're in. And I had a phone call earlier today. We've got our first $100,000 sponsor, and we'll be approaching the state government to be the $1 million sponsor and underwrite most of the costs of the event. So this whole surfing thing is rolling along, and I'm trying to get in shape, learn how to ride a board, and we're designing apparel and surf wear, board shorts, you name it, it's all happening. And we've got a photo shoot with Nathan, family and some children with CF. We've got the rashes, it's all sorted for Friday. It's unbelievable how quickly this has gathered momentum. Aspirational, just consider for a moment the kind of awareness and profiling opportunity that this affords CF in Australia. It'll be all over the media, on the international stage. We've got pro surfers coming out of the woodwork now. Mick Fanning, he's already written his letter of support and endorsement. If you know about surfing, he's a dual world champion. He's written his letter and said, I love it, I want to be part of it. It's a great event, it's a great cause. and he's the first. Nathan's off talking to all his friends and all his mates. He is held in incredibly high respect amongst his peers, and we're having a great time. What it illustrates is that we're a small disease-specific charity, but we have great capacity to be aspirational beyond our resources, whether it's through a collaborative research project, whether it's through achieving support and endorsement for a brand new treatment, whether it's running an international surfing event to ensure that we are properly understood, to ensure that we can raise some serious money for cystic fibrosis. We have the capacity to do things that are well outside of the resources that we have. And we're having a great time, but we have a great story, and it's a national story. You know, if we are to be transformational as an organisation, enabling people with CF to be aspirational for their own lives, able to personally experience this change and transformation as the result of a new treatment, an improved healthcare system, or a service delivered, then we must truly embrace innovation, new ideas. We need to be bold and courageous. We need to invest. We need to risk and work hard together. We need to be national, not parochial, in our thinking and behaviour. I just want to leave you with this final thought. The possibility of transformation is the essence of hope. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I've got to say, as somebody that's been involved with CF now for quite some time, it's really satisfying to hear the CEO of CF Australia, just talk about where we're going in the way that David has just spoken. It's really, really satisfying. And David's just touched on a few of the areas that he's involved in. One of the things you may not know, CF Australia runs a car rally